Well, thank you, Professor Alam, for being here. We really appreciate you taking time away from your busy schedule today for sharing these ideas with us. So are you able to take some questions?
Yes.
Thank you very much. Committee?
As long as they're softball questions.
Softball questions. Only the softball ones.
Yes.
Mr. Spoon.
Yes, Madam Chair and Dr. Salam, or I'm sorry, Dr. Alam. Yes, Dr. Alam. This is a three-part question, and so I'm trying to figure out where you're coming from here, which is why it's three parts. You stated that you believe the diversity of thoughts and values in the American university system. Do you believe that that diversity of thoughts and values is representative of the diversity of thoughts and values in the American population as a whole? Or does one ideological group hold higher representation in the American university system? Can you identify that group?
Mr. Alam, to respond. Go ahead.
Okay. My experience has been that there is an equal representation in the diversity of thought in classrooms. Again, that's been my experience, and I see you smiling, so I take it that you don't believe that. But I can only speak about my experience as a student for many years, and now as a professor for about 7-8 years now. I do create an environment where we're discussing these different topics in all these different perspectives. It does take a little bit more time, obviously, because every concept and every idea, if we're going to take different perspectives to it, we're essentially doubling, tripling, quadrupling the amount of time that we're spending on each topic, which would be one of the counterpoints to the point-counterpoint teaching philosophy. Is it good management of time? Which I would say you do have a point there.
Okay. I don't have the studies at my fingertips, but multiple studies would indicate that liberal and pro-CRT philosophies hold far greater sway in the American university system. So you seem to be promoting at least the teaching of CRT. Would you endorse then Ibram Kendi's solution for balancing these ideological groups? In fact, if the liberal ideological group has higher representation in the American university system, do you agree with Ibram Kendi's solution that the only remedy to discrimination is discrimination? The only remedy to past discrimination is present discrimination. The only remedy to present discrimination is future discrimination. I left out the word racist because he was talking about critical race theory. We're talking about ideological representation. Should we start discriminating against people with liberal ideologies to rebalance representation in our university system? And if you don't agree with that, then why do you disagree with critical race theory?
Professor Alam, is that a softball question for you?
Doesn't sound like a soft. That's a 100-mile-an-hour fastball right there. But I'll try my best. I'm no Joey Gallo. But first of all, I want to make it clear that I'm not promoting the teaching of anything. That's precisely what I'm not doing. I'm saying that academic environment should be one that is free of certain promotions, that it's a free thinking space. So I'm not in favor of promoting anything, but more importantly, as per this conversation, I'm not in favor of banning anything. I'm not in favor of censoring anything. And that's where I'm coming from with critical race theory as well, if we want to speak specifically about that. I think when we're talking about controversial topics like this, if we cover several competing perspectives on that particular topic, I think it gives a better picture of what's going on there. My personal opinion, as I keep saying over and over again, is that when a topic is taught from the perspective of a singular perspective, then it doesn't leave enough room for opposing perspectives. And my experience has been, again, it's just one person, N of one, right? So my experience has been, both as a teacher and a student and a professor, we've had equal representation. So hopefully that was a clear answer. I don't know if I hit it out of the park. Maybe a single or double, right?
We agree on the principle of equal representation, possibly not on the result.
Okay, fair enough.
Okay, great. Committee, Reverend Wilson.
Madam Chair.
Go ahead.
And Professor Alam, your presentation, to my mind, is very refreshing.
Thank you.
Your whole counterpoint philosophy, to me, it's right out of a reconciliation playbook, and I appreciate it very, very much. My biggest problem with some of the materials we've covered, and here comes my question, is that they're not always presented in terms of facts, in terms of truth. For example, and I'll just give you an example because this is a hobby horse of mine. 1619 project is often taught alongside critical race theory. One of the principal contentions of 1619 is that the American Revolution was fought for the purpose of preserving slavery. Now, that's just not true, and I'm sure you know that. I'm not going to argue with you about it. But my question is, or for example, 1619 also, says that capitalism was behind slavery, when in fact it was the abolitionist movement was almost entirely fueled by mega capitalists. Mm-hmm. My question then is how does your point counterpoint deal with a situation where you've got, on the one hand, things that are factually correct, and that they're not? How do you address that in a point counterpoint?
Sure.
Approach?
So,
Professor.
I keep forgetting. Sorry about that. So, my opinion is that the solution to what we might consider bad ideas are more ideas. So if we create an environment where we're having a conversation that's more detailed, as opposed to saying this is the way that it is and this is the only, way of perceiving history, I think we sort of pigeonhole ourselves into a particular perspective and viewpoint. But if we create an environment, again, where we're having these discussions and we're talking about these topics in several different perspectives, again, time permitting, then I think that doesn't solve the problem. I don't think anything ever really solves problems. We sort of try to address it in such a way that that it's clear that we're not taking a side in the conversation.
Further questions? Anna, did you have a question?
Thank you for being here today, and thank you for your presentation.
Yeah.
Previously, a student from one of your classes sent me a video wherein you entertained the viewpoint, what you called the solid viewpoint, that white people should be slaves. You talked about point-counterpoint philosophy. Is there a corresponding argument, in your view, which you discussed maybe in class, for enslaving other races, or what was the counterpoint to the solid viewpoint that you should enslave white people?
Professor, did you?
No,
Can you
that
answer that
I don't know if
question?
you have a different professor, but yeah.
We have the recording.
Okay.
Remember to go through the committee chair members. Any further questions? Professor Yenner.
That caught me off guard. Sorry about that. Yeah.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We're both professors, so we're not used to
Yes.
going through chairs. And we're used to being the top dog, so it's hard for us, right? I want to maybe just ask a little bit more about the point-counterpoint thing. I mean, I teach, people always think I have an axe to grind. I generally think I don't when I teach. But,
Don't we all?
That's always the way it is. Do you think that it's the job of departments to advance environmental justice, advance the cause of environmental justice?
Professor Alam.
I don't know that I'm equipped to answer that question. I don't know that, I think departments tend often to encourage academic freedom, as you're quite aware. I don't have an answer for you there.
Follow up?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
Professor Yenner.
Does the idea, in your view, of point-counterpoint teaching include advancing human rights, advancing environmental justice, advancing social and economic justice, engaging in policy practice?
The point counterpoint teaching philosophy aims to approach these topics as in what would it mean to take the stance that we should be progressing, as well as what does it mean to take the stance that we should not be progressing these viewpoints. We would like to be able to entertain, create a safe space in an academic environment where we are entertaining all of these ideas. But I personally don't believe in the way that I teach that I'm advancing anything. I'm just trying to have a conversation. Ultimately, I want my students to learn, to ask the questions necessary to sort of learn how to think for themselves, as opposed to thinking the way that I think.
Follow up.
One quick follow-up. Thank you, Madam Chair. I was reading those things from the Department of Social Work's Department Learning Objectives, which include things like advanced human rights and social and economic and environmental justice as a core competency that students have to have before they leave. So it seems to me, and just please correct me if I'm wrong about this, that that your teaching style just doesn't quite fit in with the core competencies of the department that that is seeking to advance particular causes.
Well, what is the
Professor
advance?
Lum.
Sorry, I keep forgetting. I'm probably going to keep doing this. Sorry about
No,
that.
you're going to be.
So what does it mean to advance social and economic justice? You know, one of the conversations is that we might want to advance racial justice and gender equality and things like that. But are we also including the diversity of thought, where we have people coming from the left side of ideology and the right side of ideology and being able to share that safe space together? So there's room for interpretation there. And I would challenge that I'm not going against those core competencies and principles. Rather, I'm using my academic freedom to interpret them the way that I'm permitted to do.
Any further questions? Laura?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Did
Good
it.
job.
Thank you for coming. What subject do you teach?
Social work.
What?
Social work.
Social work?
Social work, yes.
What in particular in social work?
I teach intro to social work.
Just
and-
intro?
Yes, and human behavior as well. I've taught in previous school. This is my first year with Boise State University. I've taught research 1, research 2, human behavior. Yeah.
Okay, so
Uh,
if,
Laura?
Madam Chair,
I'm teaching
I'm
you.
not good at this
I'm
either.
teaching you how to be a good legislator.
I'm just glad I'm not the only one.
Ready
Yeah.
for your next job.
Oh, okay. Madam Chair, now I lost my train of thought. So if the point counterpoint,
Mhm.
I appreciate that idea.
Mhm.
But if you have a student that says something completely ludicrous, I identify as an artichoke today. Is that going to be okay?
Professor Alam.
See, I
you
waited
should
that
respond
time.
to that.
There you go. We'd, if time permitting, we'd have a conversation about that and sort of talk through that. We wouldn't, I wouldn't want to understand why. That's the point of education, isn't to shut down that idea, but we want to understand why, a student might identify as an artichoke. I don't mean to laugh at that, I'm sorry,
Well,
but
I mean it to be funny.
Committee member
I'm-
Laura.
Madam Chair, I mean it to be funny
okay.
because it's ludicrous. But that seems to me what is going on out there in academia is total ludicrousness.
Committee members, let's just stick to questions for the professor and not comment on our observations of other things going on. So we want to make sure that we're respectful to our presenter here today. Thank you.
And I just want to
Another
also,
way to ask the question.
yeah, I'm not speaking on behalf of Boise State or any other faculty members. I want to keep reiterating that.
Mark, did you have a question?
I do, ma'am. Thank you, Madam
ahead.
Chair. Dr. Lam, great presentation. I think superior in delivery, and I personally appreciate the content and I hope I have the time to learn more about it. And so not understanding the depth of the principles you explained, I want to kind of dial in on agreement
Mhm.
and
Understanding.
pre-existing understanding, and then in the context of, I quoted you here, I've never been in a room where everyone agrees with one another. And so I had the pleasure of speaking to Doc Moggin this morning for like 30 minutes on the side of the road when we had a signal. He's the director, as you know, of the social work department at Boise State. And so what we chatted about is, yes, at the university level, it might be appropriate and beneficial to entertain ideas of being an artichoke, for example, or whatever the case might be. But I
Look what you
think
started.
one of the things, so in the 3rd grade, 4th grade, 5th grade, I think most people agree that kids should be taught racism is wrong, that lying is wrong, honesty is right, being unbiased is right. And so to us, yes, so at a higher level, yes, pre-existing agreements, things like that, assuming everyone in the room thinks the same, bad idea, especially at a university, right? But don't you think it's fair that at a younger age, say K through 8 or maybe K6, whatever, that it's appropriate to teach them certain virtues, the difference between right behavior, wrong behavior. Can you comment on that, please?
Professor Alam.
I respectfully cannot, because I've never taught at that level, nor do I have children myself to reference in that way. I'm just not qualified. I have my opinions, of course, but I'm not qualified to speak on that.
Madam Chair?
Follow up.
Yes, so you do have an opinion on that. So will you please share,
No.
Dr. Alam?
No.
Professor Alam. Okay.
Okay, Madam Chair,
A follow up?
please. So I did sit through, just so you know, I studied social work for the last 2 years at Walla Walla U. And I was in I went to grad school, right? So I was in 2 years of studies. And I've been the only person in the room that had an opinion that was different than everyone else. And there was a bias in that room. There, as a 50-year-old man, retired Marine, there was a lot of pressure. I felt intimidated, and I felt oftentimes like I wasn't given a chance. Now, that wasn't your class, but there was a lot of pressure in the room, and I felt intimidated to share my opinions. And oftentimes when I did, I would get trumped by the professor, and everyone else in the room would dogpile on the comment and feed off of the professor's comment. So I do, from a personal experience, know that there's not a level playing field in every classroom. That's all I have, ma'am.
Is that a question for?
That was a
for
statement.
Professor? Okay. That's a statement from the committee member.
Can I
And if you may respond
Yeah,
if you
I
wish.
would.
Sure. Go
Yeah,
ahead.
first, thank you for your service. I appreciate, we all appreciate that. And as far as, being in an environment where you felt like you weren't being heard, that's what I've heard a lot of people say, and that's obviously why I'm here today. We'll say that this presentation, probably a couple of edits and a couple of tweaks, I will be presenting at Boise State University with the Center for Teaching and Learning, where there will be other professors there sort of teaching, or rather I would be presenting, it's called a teacher spotlight, where I'll be talking about this particular way of teaching philosophy. Will it reach folks? I don't know, but at least it's, it'll be there. So I'm sorry for your experience.
Professor Alam, are you willing to continue with the line of questioning?
I haven't seen many softballs, but I suppose can I just go if there's a hard ball coming in? But yeah,
Okay.
I'm okay to continue if.
Thank you. Thank you for that accommodation. We appreciate you very much. Sonia.
So my question is, who should ensure that a teacher or professor presents or allows several competing perspectives on an issue?
Professor Alam.
That's a good question. I don't have an answer for you there. I don't know whose responsibility it should be. Again, this is just my teaching philosophy. This is the way that I teach, nor is this a recommendation of how others should teach. I understand that this teaching philosophy is also flawed, but I can't answer that question.
Further questions? Ryan?
Yes, Madam Chair, Dr. Alam. Dr. Alam, this is a bit of more of a softball than my first one.
Thank you.
This one's just about something as boring as money.
Oh,
Since this task force scope is limited to public institutions, do you feel that it is an efficient use of taxpayer dollars to spend classroom time teaching every possible entertainable point and counterpoint that anyone can come up with?
no, that's a good.
Or should we limit that?
Yeah, that's not as much of a softball as you said that it was, but clearly the answer would be likely not, right? Because if we were there are so many theories of human behavior, we could spend an entire academic career of 4 to 20 years learning all of those theories. So, common sense would suggest that we don't have the time to spend time on every single idea. But at the same time, there are ideas that are hot topics, controversial topics, like we're all here today to talk about CRT. Clearly, it's important. So for topics like this, I think it makes sense to see differing perspectives versus whether or not food is important.
Okay, are there any other questions from the committee for Professor Alam? Okay, well, Professor, once again, thank you so much for making time to come talk to us today. And it's been an interesting and good debate, discussion. And thanks for being here. Now, when you come back to testify before the legislative committee, you're going to know exactly how you're supposed to address the chair and the committee. So
Don't throw
I
me
hope
in
that
jail
was
for messing
helpful
that
for
up.
you. Thank you so much for
Thank
being
you,
here
appreciate it. Thank you
today.
all. Thank you.
Thanks.